Okay, hello, good evening everyone. Welcome to tonight's class. Baruch Hashem, I'm happy to be back in Beit Gabriel. I've been here a number of times, upstairs and downstairs, and there's, Baruch Hashem, a good turnout wherever you are, up or downstairs. This topic obviously is a topic of interest to a lot of people. Mazal. Is that something that's predestined? I'm stuck with whatever it is, min hashamayim. Zechut, zechutim, zchusim. Does that make any difference? If I have a zchus, a merit, if something I did right, does that affect it in any way? What about davening? Tfilah, mitpalel, I'm davening. Does that change anything? It sort of becomes very vague after a while, what's what? The reason it's actually vague maybe is because the Talmud itself has different opinions, and we're going to take a look and see what it says in the source material. Whatever I have to say is not that relevant, but whatever the rabbis in the Talmud and the rabbis of the Zohar say, maybe can give us a little guidance, and we'll walk out of here tonight with some more clarity and some idea what to do and where we're going and what's Mazal and what's Zechut and what's Tfilah and what's preordained and what can we control and where we are. So it's interesting that the Talmud actually starts off by saying that a person is affected by their mazal, meaning when they are born. What day of the week they are born. And the Talmud in Masechta Shabbos, Tractate Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Vav, in that neighborhood, page 156, actually has a discussion about one of the rabbis of the Talmud says that the hour you were born, the day you were born plays a role. And the Talmud goes through, if you were born on Sunday, then your Mazal is this way and that way. I'm not going to go into the details right now, each one. You can look it up. We'll see it's not nothing mysterious. Monday, Tuesday, and the Talmud goes through each day. For persons born on that day, what's their Mazal? They're born in this day. In this day, certain things happen during Bereshis that affects them. I'll say one example. The Talmud talks about somebody born on Wednesday. Says the Talmud, Yehi Gvir Chakim V'Nohir. There'll be a Gvar, a person who is wise and radiant, because on that day the sun was created. So the Brias HaOlam, what happened in the Brias HaOlam, affects the person, and if that person, according to the Talmud, will be what's called a Gvar Chakim V'Nohir, a person who is smart and radiant. Or at least they have the potential for it. And the Talmud has other things like that too. But before you start calculating what day you were born in the week, the next section of the Talmud says, Amalei Rab Chanina. Rab Chanina says, that's nothing to do with anything. Loi Mazal Yoim Goyreim, not the Mazal of the day causes you your Mazal, but the Mazal of the hour that you were born causes you a Mazal. In other words, there are different hours during the day, and depending what hour you were born, you have a certain fate, a certain Mazal, a certain premonition, a certain disposition, a certain netiyah, whatever word you want to use. How strong is that? We'll see soon. The Gemara then asks the question directly, is it really so that Jews have a Mazal, or are Jews above Mazal? It's something that's preordained, predestined, what's going to happen to you, or are we above that and a person can change things? So the Talmud actually has two opinions. Oh, well, we're going to see everything when it comes. We must be believing in something. We're saying Mazel Tov when it comes to, a Simcha, so we're saying something. But let's see what the end of the story is. The Talmud actually says that there's a machlokes, an argument, a discussion between two rabbis. Rabbi Chanina Omer, Yesh Mazal Yisrael. Rabbi Chanina says there is a Mazal, a preordained, predestined situation that a person has. Rabbi Yochanan says, Ein Mazal Yisrael. The Mazolos, the constellations, the astrology, the day, the hour, the time, doesn't affect Yisrael. These are the two opinions in the Gemara. Now, let's understand that the question that the two rabbis have is, does Mazal, when you're born, play any role in anything or not? So one says no, and one says yes. The commentaries explain that the one that says Yesh Mazal Yisrael, it means that there's a preordained disposition that a person has toward certain character traits, toward certain lifestyle, toward certain things that are happening in their life. But it can be mitigated and it can be modified based on a person's efforts and based on their tefillos and based on what they're going to do. In other words, even the ones who say Yesh Mazal Yisrael, that Jews do have a Mazal and the Mazal plays a role, it's not something that you're stuck and you're on the conveyor belt and you can't move. It means you have certain predispositions to something, and that's your role to work on that and change that slowly with action, with mitzvot, with tefillot, and things like that. The other opinion that says Ein Mazal Yisrael means that really you're born at a certain time, but you can completely eradicate that, whatever the situation was, the time, the day, the situation, your parents, your community, your disposition, your intelligence, whatever it is, you have a full ability to completely change that. So the difference between the two opinions of Yesh Mazal Yisrael and Ein Mazal Yisrael are not as far off as they initially sound. That one says no and one says yes. Because the one says no, yes, you have a Mazal, is saying, yeah, you have a Mazal, you have a predisposition, certain things based on when you were born, but you can modify it. And the other one says Ein Mazal. Ein Mazal means that you have predisposition, but you can completely get rid of it. So the difference between the two opinions is only as far as how strong is our efforts going to change things. One opinion is we can change things to an extent. That's Ein Mazal Yisrael. That's Yesh Mazal Yisrael. You have a Mazal, you can change it to an extent. Yesh Mazal Yisrael. And Ein Mazal Yisrael means you can change it completely, virtually.
If you change it?
Change it completely.
What's the difference between Yesh Mazal?
The difference is only in degree. It's not as stark as it initially sounds. No, you're stuck, your life is robotic, or you're completely, everyone is equal at birth and everybody has the same situation. It's not so stark. It's really much closer together. The closer together is of Yesh Mazal Yisrael means you have predispositions. That's a fact. People are born, some smarter, some less smart, some with these character traits, some with those character traits, some with a predisposition toward being sad, some toward a predisposition towards being happy. That's there, but you can mitigate it. The other of Ein Mazal Yisrael is saying basically you're also born with those exact same character traits, but you can completely change it. So it's a difference only in grade. What is the final conclusion of the Talmud? So the final conclusion of the Talmud is the following. The Gemara says, Rav says, Ein Mazal Yisrael, and he actually shows it based on psukim, verses in the Torah. Hashem said to Abraham, go outside and look up in the sky. The words are, Omar Abraham lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Abraham said to Hashem, Ribono shel olam, Hashem, ben beisi yoresh osi, my servant Eliezer is inheriting my whole household. I have no children of my own. Omar lo, Hashem said to him, Lav, no, he won't inherit. Ki im asher yetzi mimeecha, your own child will be your heir. Amar lefonav Rebbeinu shel olam, Abraham said to Hashem, Nistakalti b'stagninus sheli, I looked at my astrology, I looked in the Mazal, ve'ein ro'i lohei lidbeini, ro'i lohei lidbeini, and I see that I'm not worthy to have a son. Amar lo, Hashem said to him, Tzei me'stagninus shelcha, go out from your star analysis, from your analysis of astrology, from calculating when you were born, what your fate is. She'ein Mazal li Yisrael, because there's no Mazal for Yisrael, and you're above that. So Hashem said it to Abraham. Abraham himself had this question, and Hashem said to him, you're okay. Abraham thought that the only way he could possibly have a child is with a nace, a mofes, a miracle from Hashem. Hashem said it's not a miracle. All it requires is you should go out from your box and know that a Jew has a higher ability, and ein mazal Yisrael, you can change your whole life. What do you do to change your life? So the Talmud doesn't leave us hanging. The Talmud says the following. 3 short stories of how you change your mazal. We're talking about, the Talmud's conclusion is ein mazal Yisrael, that Jews are not stuck with a certain predisposition, that there's the ability to change everything completely. How do you do it? Says the Talmud, 3 stories. First story, Talmud says that the famous rabbi of the Talmud, Shmuel, not Shmuel Hanavi, Shmuel Hanavi was much earlier, a Talmudic rabbi named Shmuel, famous Talmudic rabbi named Shmuel, and an astrologer, a non-Jewish astrologer whose name was Avlate. These 2 were sitting and watching people go by. And the Talmud says that they saw a bunch of workers going down to the swamplands to clear the reeds. Avlate pointed to one person there, and he said to his friend Shmuel sitting next to him, he said, see that man? He's going down to his job today, and he's not coming back. He's going to die there. That's his mazal. And Shmuel said, no. He's coming back. At the end of the day, the workers came back, and he was among them. And Shmuel looks at Avlate, he said he's not coming back, here he is. Avlate jumps up, runs over to the man, pulls off his backpack, opens up his backpack, and in his backpack he sees there's a snake, and the snake was cut in half. Evidently, the snake was about to bite this man and kill him, and he didn't even know it. And while he was cutting the reeds, doing his work, he cut the snake. Now, what would our reaction usually be? Oh, a big mazal! A big mazal. So, Avlate couldn't understand it. He saw he was right. The man was destined to be killed that day. His mazal said he's goodbye. But somehow, unknowing, while he was working the field, he actually, the last second before the snake killed him, he actually cut the snake in half without even realizing it. Shmuel, the other astrologer sitting there, said to the man, what happened special today? Because Shmuel understood that what Avlate said was accurate. The man's mazal was that this was his final day, and he wasn't coming back. And Shmuel knew that, but Shmuel hoped, and he said, no, he's coming back. He hoped he would, and now he came back, and Shmuel knew that there's something he did. Shmuel said to him, what happened today? The man said, well, the only thing unusual that happened today was, what we do is we all pool our lunches. Everybody brings a sandwich or something from home, and we all put it together in one big bag, and whatever we bring, and then everybody takes something out, and we sort of eat a communal lunch. Everybody puts in something, and we all it's in English it's called a pot lunch, I think they call it. They do that sometimes. And I saw today, said the man to Shmuel, that one of my co-workers forgot to bring something from home, had no sandwich. And when they were going to go around to collect the lunch, the sandwiches from everyone, he's going to be embarrassed. He's not going to have anything to put in. I noticed it. So I told everybody, you know what? I'll collect it today. I went around, I started collecting, and when I got near that guy who I knew didn't have a sandwich, I had an extra sandwich in my pocket. I pulled out my extra sandwich, and I put my extra sandwich in there, and nobody noticed that he didn't put in, and I put in his place, and he wasn't embarrassed. Aha, says Shmuel. That's the reason. The schus, the merit of saving that person from his humiliation and his embarrassment of not bringing his share for the lunch, saved you from your misa. And the wording of the Gemara is mitzvah avadit, you did such a mitzvah, utzedakah tatzil mimoves, and tzedakah, doing that righteousness, saved you from being killed that day. V'loi misa mishuna, not only from a unusual death, from death altogether. So the Talmud is giving us a first example. Hashem said to Abraham, don't look at your astrology. Don't look at what's in the Mazalot. You're higher than that. And the Talmud wants us to have practical examples of how you do it. Gives the Talmud the first example. This was a man who did that. He rose higher than the occasion, the tzedakah. The Talmud gives a second example, that the astrologers told Rabbi Akiva that his daughter, Rachmana litzlan, God forbid, is going to die on the day of her wedding. God forbid, Rachmana litzlan. And he was a little bit worried. That's what the Mazal people told him. The day of her wedding, she was getting ready for the chasna, getting dressed, putting on her gown and everything like that. And the wedding went through, nothing happened, everything fine. Rabbi Akiva saw, looks like no problem. When she went to take off her fancy gown, she had taken a pin from the gown and she had stuck it in the wall earlier in the day. She went now to retrieve the long pin that she had stuck in the wall. When she pulled the pin out, along with the pin came a poisonous snake. Evidently, without realizing it, when she was getting dressed for the wedding, and she took that pin and she was adjusting things and she stuck the pin into the wall, the pin in the wall struck right between the eyes the snake that was Mazal, predestined to kill her that day, according to the astrologist, and it didn't happen. And Rabbi Akiva asked his daughter, what happened? Look at this. They were right. There was a Mazal, and we're higher than the Mazal. What did you do today that you had such a wonderful thing happen to you that you rose above the Mazal? So she said, well, the only thing I could tell you, Father, is when I was getting ready for the chasana, a poor person came in who was very hungry, and he was looking for a meal, and everybody was busy, so no one was paying attention. And I saw, so I gave him my meal. Rabbi Akiva said that's what did it. The schus of that tzedakah, as the Gemara says, mitzvah avadit utzedakah tatzel mimavis. The final third one that the Gemara says is that Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak's mother was told, your son, this baby, Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak, he's going to grow up to be a thief. He's going to grow up to be a ganav. What should she do? So she was advised, put him on a yarmulke, a kippah, put him on a yarmulke. And he'll have a yarmulke that'll save him. The schus of wearing the yarmulke will save him from being a ganav, because a yarmulke will always remind him, there's something above me, there's something above me, there's something above me. And he always wore his yarmulke and everything was fine. And she davened, boy rachmim, she davened. Yom Echad, says the Gemara, one day, Yoav Kagoras Tudelika, he was studying under a palm tree, and his yarmulke fell off. He lifted up his eyes. According to most commentaries, he was still a young boy under bar mitzvah. He lifted up his eyes, he saw a palm tree, he wanted to eat it, and he started grabbing at the palm tree leaves, fruit, to eat it, because that was his nature. But he put the back on the yarmulke on him, it reminded him again, I have to be higher than that. Maybe after his bar mitzvah, when he got older already, he improved to the point where he didn't have that inclination, but as a little boy he had that inclination, and the schus of a small thing actually was enough. First two stories, you see, these are schusim of big things. Tzedakah. Here it's even a small thing, just a custom. A minhag Yisrael, a yarmulke, was enough actually to save him. And those are our examples of ein Mazal li Yisrael. Basically, what it says is that no matter what, every person's born with different things. Not everybody's equal. We see that ourselves. Some people are born in rich circumstances, some poor, some more smart, some less smart, some this, some that, some in a family where it's better, some worse, some have an easier time, a harder time. Everybody has certain things. There is a predisposition to things. But ein Mazal Yisrael means we can always arise above it. According to the Zohar, we have another thing that helps us. The Zohar actually says that before the Torah was given, the Mazal played a very strong role. There was nothing to mitigate it. After the Torah was given, says the Zohar is in Parshas Pinchas, Acha shenitna Torah liYisrael, after the Torah was given, Jews went out of this old astrological system. Therefore, anybody who studies Torah, osek b'Torah doesn't even mean just studying Torah. Anybody who's busy with Torah could be any aspect of Torah. It is no longer under the sway, that person, of kochavim and mazolos. So Torah and tzedakah and things like this give a person complete and utter control above and beyond. What about davening? Where does the tefillah come into place? So there's a Mishnah at the end of Kiddushin, and the Mishnah says the following. Rabbi Meir says, La'olam yilmad adam es beno umnis kalanaki. A person should teach their child a clean and easy profession. Whatever that is, everybody can define it themselves. V'yispalel l'misha oishav anachosim shalo. And then, once you teach somebody a good profession, now you have to daven. Because she'ein she'ein bayanias v'ashiras. Every profession has poor and rich people. There are people who are medical doctors or lawyers and graduates from the biggest colleges that don't make a dime. And there are people that dropped out of 3rd grade and they have a very, what's usually a very weak job financially, and no matter what they do, everything goes great. They have to have a job. You have to have an umnus. But once you have the umnus, the profession, you need a daven that you should be successful in that profession, because every profession has its ups and downs. Ela hakol lefi hazechus. Everything is according to the person's merit. These are the words of the Mishnah. The Tosfos Yontif, commentary on the Mishnah, asks a question. If everything is according to the schus, which actually matches what we said till now, so what's the point of davening? What's the point of tefillah? If you have the schus, it works. If you don't have the schus, it doesn't work. Why are you going to pray to Hashem? V'omer ani. So the Tosfos Yontif says the following thing. Now he doesn't say it bringing any proof. He says it on his own. V'omer ani. And I say. Before I tell you what he says, I want to tell you that when a commentary like the Tosfos Yontif says V'omer ani, it's actually a stronger statement than if he brings a statement with proofs. I'll tell you why. Many, many years ago, I heard, when I was still a bacher in high school, from one of my rabbeim, I would say who it was, but I don't remember which one, who said that when one of the commentaries says V'omer ani, or a similar expression, V'nira li, that's stronger than if they bring a proof. If they bring a proof, somebody else can say that's no proof, and they come up with somebody else. If they bring a pasuk, somebody else can say from that pasuk I learned it differently. But V'omer ani, or V'ni lira, it appears to me, or I believe, I think, that means the entire personality and neshama of that great rabbi, that great tzaddik, and their entire Torah learning experience leads them to say this. So it's higher than actually having a particular proof on something. It's something that their whole Torah mentality dictates. The Tosfos Yontif in the end of Kiddushin says, V'omer ani, this is how I understand it. Shele'inyan hazeh toel tfilasai. Tefillah also helps. V'tzorech lo, and it's necessary. Kevin shaschus lefomem eina meshana hamazal. Listen to the words. Kevon shaschus lefomem eina meshana hamazal. Because sometimes the zechus is not strong enough to change the mazal. We mentioned before 3 stories in the Gemara where the zechus changed the mazal. The man cut the reeds, but he had the zechus of tzedakah and not embarrassing the person that day. The zechus of his mitzvah was higher, changed the mazal. We also mentioned the story where Rabbi Akiva's daughter gave the plate of food to the man, and that zechus changed the mazal. We mentioned the story of the boy who always wore his yarmulke, and that zechus changed the mazal. Those were cases where the zechus, the merit, was strong enough to overcome whatever negative natural predisposition to something they had. Tosfos Yontif says, sometimes you have a zechus, you did something good, but it's not strong enough to change your mazal. Why? Either you have a predisposition and a mazal that's very strong, and you need some strong merits, or the zechus, the merit that you did, is nice, but not so great. So the Tosfos Yontif says that lif'omim, the zechus is not enough to be meshana hamazal. You have a zechus, but it doesn't quite do the job. Al kain, al zos yispalel kol chosid shetoil zechusah l'shtanas hamazal. Basically, he says that you should daven that your zchusim should be strong enough to change your mazal. Basically, your tefillah, your davening, is vitamins for your merits. Sha'afilu hamazal lo yora halatzlachaso, even if the mazal is a negative one, hakol lefi zechuso, the zechusim can come and fix it. She'em ein zechus yevsher shetisha mazal, if there's no zechus, there's tishtana mazal, if there's no zechus, you can't change the mazal, but the zechus can do it. Ulefikach yispalel, therefore a person should daven kedei shezchusay tigrum l'shanas hamazal, that his zechus should be able to change the mazal. Kain nira be'enai. That's what it appears in my eyes. So basically what the Tosfos Yontif is saying is, Ein mazal li Yisrael. Whatever your predispositions are, don't think it's unconquerable. It's conquerable with merits, with schusim. And if you feel or you know, or the fact is that your schusim aren't strong enough, you can make them stronger by davening. So your combination of mitzvahs and tefillah give a Jew the advantage that they can overcome anything that there is. And that's the conclusion of the Gemara. And that's the conclusion in the Talmud. Basically what it says is to a Jewish person that we have challenges, and that there's no challenge that can't be met and can't be conquered and can't be overcome. Ein Mazal Yisrael means no Jew should feel that I give up, I can't do it, I'm lost. No such thing. A person can always do it. Another mitzvah, another zchus, another merit with a good piece of davening can do it. If that didn't work, one more, and eventually we'll get to it. Specifically, people need mazal and zchusim to change their mazal, and tefillos in all kinds of things. But specifically, my subject tonight is also one of the most difficult things for people, which today is a challenge, and that's Shiduchim, marriages. Evidently, it's always been a challenge because the Talmud compares it to Kriyas Yamsuf. The Talmud compares it to the splitting of the Red Sea. Shiduch, a marriage that takes place, is miraculous. It's like the Red Sea was split. Kriyas Yamsuf, what a giant thing. It's not so easy. Why is that? So the background on Shiduchim is two separate sections in the Talmud. One section in the Talmud says it's predestined. There's a Mazal. 40 days before a person is born, Bas kol machrezes v'omeres bas ploni ploni. There's a divine decree. This is the Shidduch. Should be so simple, right? Fine. Now I just got to look in the phone book who it is, right? Simple. And then the Gemara says in a different place, Ein mezavgin loy le'odam elo lefi ma'asov. A person's shidduch is according to their actions. I guess you could translate that, they're zechusim. So it would appear that basically the same groundwork that we have for everything else is there by Shiduchim too. Mazal and zchus. Predisposition, predetermination, and merit. And one section of the Talmud says it's written down, there's a mazal, this is the person. And the other section of the Talmud says, no, it's zchus lefi ma'asov.
What about if somebody never got married?
We're talking about that.
Somebody that never married can do it.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened? Okay. But these two sections of the Talmud, they contradict each other. One says it's predestined, predetermined, 40 days before, all written down. And the other says it's lefi ma'asov. If your ma'asim are better, it changes, it's worse. So it's a contradiction. What do we do with it? Well, we could answer simply, yes, there's a mazal, but you can change it according to your zechusim. And that would be a good answer, and that's a correct answer, because if that's for everything, for panasah, for sustenance, and for your job, and for your dwelling place, and for your character traits, it's that way for Shiduchim too. Hang on. But here, when it comes to a Shidduch, the Talmud says even something special. The Talmud says that actually it depends. It depends, are we talking about Zivug Rishon, the first marriage partner, or are we talking about zivug sheni, the second marriage partner? The Talmud says, the Talmud explains, when we say that a person is predestined, and 40 days before they're born, the marriage partner is already designated, we're talking about the first marriage partner. When we say that the person is according to their merits, schusim, of what they do with themselves, we're talking about zivug sheni, the second marriage partner. What does the first marriage partner and the second marriage partner mean? So Rashi understands it in the most simple fashion. First marriage partner is the first person you marry. The second one is the one you marry after you get divorced or whatever it is from the first one. This is zivug rishon, zivug sheni. That's Rashi's understanding. The Rav Yankov Emden says that the first marriage partner and the second marriage partner don't mean the first one you marry and the second one you marry. No. The first marriage partner means the initial person that's designated for you before you're born. You may never marry them. That's the initial designation. And the second marriage partner is the person that they change it to based on your actions. That means you're born in a certain place, a certain way, a certain time, a certain family, a certain religiosity, a certain social setting. Somebody is written for you in that situation. But when you're 10 years old, you move to a different city. And you become religious. And you change your life. And you've done more mitzvahs. And you've changed your character traits. And you're a different person at 10, at 12, at 15. Now, they cross out that first name, change it to a different name. Change it to a different name. Lefi ma'asov, according to your deeds. Did you marry anybody yet? No, you're only 15, remember? But there's a new name in there. Because the first name was according to your Mazal. The second name, when it was changed, is according to your Zechusim, to your actions, to your Maasim. In fact, that name may be changed many times. Many times. Because you keep on improving. Or you keep on de-improving, if there's such a word. That's Rabbi Yankov Emden. The Meiri says a similar thing. He says the first one is when you're small and the other one is when you're older. And the Akedas Yitzchak says basically also the same thing. The first one is when you're born and the second one is at the time of your marriage. Basically the three of them outside of Rashi explain a zivug rishon and a zivug sheni to be not the people you marry, but the first designated person, as opposed to later designations that get changed according to the person's situation and according to what they make out of themselves. So, when it comes to Shiduchim and marriage, the same ingredients that work for everything else work here too. Zechusim, merits, tefillah, and davening. And that's what the person has to do here also. There may be, though, a deeper difficulty with marriage than with other things because of something that is in the books of Kabbalah. Now, I'm not an expert on Kabbalah, and this is a concept that I'll explain it the best that I can. The Pasuk says, and this is in the Kisvei Ho'ari, the Pasuk says, V'yotza ishtoi imoi. When there's in Pashas Mishpatim, when there's a person who is sold as a servant because they stole and they have to work off their debt, beginning of Pashas Mishpatim, people are aware of this law of an Eved Ivri, someone who is, it's translated sold as a slave, but it's really not a slave, sold as a worker to a owner for a period of time so they can work off their debts. Eved Ivri. When they leave that circumstance, v'yotza ishtoi imoi, then the wife of that man also goes free. She unfortunately went into servitude with him, but she goes out within too. that can cause a little bit of a machlokes. That can cause a little bit of trouble, because she's mad at him. You stole something, and I go into servitude along with you. What's this about? And they live like that for 120 years. And then they're both nifter. And then says the Arizal, maybe, many times, the person comes back in a Gilgul. Now, Gilgul is usually translated reincarnation. But it's not exactly that. That gives just a general translation of it. A Gilgul doesn't mean the same person comes back. It means elements of the neshama of that person somehow come back to have a tikkun, a correction, another time around. So the man comes back, because he was a thief the first time maybe, or whatever he did, he comes back. Now his wife comes back too, because ish v'ishtoi, they're a pair. And she's unhappy. You know why she's unhappy? Because not only she went into servitude with him, but now she has to come back in Gilgul a second time to leave the Gan Eden and the heavenly abode to come back again to this world. I'm explaining it to the best of my ability. And she's very annoyed. And she doesn't want to marry him again, because she had enough the first time. And that's the problem of the Shidduch. And that's the problem of a zivug sheni lefi ma'asov. And the Arizal points out, it doesn't say zivug v'loiksiv zivug sheni. It says zivug sheni, not zivug shenis. Zivug shenis would mean a second person you're marrying. It's zivug sheni, a second occurrence of the same event. Zivug sheni is the gilgul of the two people coming back again and having to reunite, and there's friction because things didn't go so well the very first time. And that's the difficulty of Shiduchim, because there's many multiple layers of neshama and things like that involved, and it makes for a difficulty. What can the person do? Well, one thing is what we mentioned before. There's always zechusim and tefillah and tehillim, merits, mitzvahs, Torah, davening, etc., which works across the board. And then also, there's another thing for Shiduchim, which has the extra element too. If it's compared to Kriyas Yamsuf, to the splitting of the sea, then there are things at the splitting of the sea which relate to marriage. If we're comparing marriage to the splitting of the sea, and it's so difficult like the splitting of the sea, well, what caused the sea to split? If we can figure that out, then we'll figure out what causes a marriage to happen. Right? Because the marriage is like the splitting of the sea. So here's a few of how Chazal, the rabbis of the Talmud, look at it. The Shmos Rabbah, the Medrash Shmos Rabbah, says that when it came to the splitting of the sea, like Kibul Olav Lekroa, the sea didn't want to split. The sea said, Miponecho ani korei, in front of you, Moses, I'm going to split. Who are you? Ani gadol mimcha. I'm older than you, greater than you. I precede you. Shani nivresi begimel v'ato nivresa bevav. I, the sea, I was created on the third day of creation, and you, Moshe, you human, you were created on the sixth day. I was there way before you. I'm higher than you. I'm more than you. Why should I split for you? Ma osa HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What did Hashem do? Nosan yemina al yemina shel Moshe. He placed his right hand, so to speak, on the right hand of Moshe, saying in the merit that this man is going to be the messenger of the Torah, split. And to that, the Yam, the water couldn't answer. It had to split in the merit of the Torah. So the Shmos Rabbah is telling us the sea splits in the merit of Torah, and the Shidduch comes in the merit of Torah. Another medrash, also in Shmos Rabbah. What did the Egyptians think? What did the Egyptians say? The medrash says, Kach Amru HaMitzrim. This is what the Egyptians said. Moses can do nothing without his stick. You know, every time there was a makkah, a plague in Mitzrayim, Moshe took his stick. He did this with the stick, that with the stick. With the stick, they hit the water. With the stick, he brought the makkahs. When the Jews came to the Yamsuf, to the sea, and the Egyptians were standing in back of them. Moses was told by Hashem, put aside your stick and lift up your hand. No stick. No stick here. The Egyptians shouldn't say, and nobody should say, if not for the stick, if not for the stick, he couldn't split the sea. He needs a stick. Or if you want, we can translate it, Moses needs a crutch. He needs a crutch to split the sea. He doesn't need a crutch to split the sea. And when it comes to a shidduch, a person has to know there's no crutch to lean on. There's no crutch to lean on. You have to pick yourself up and raise your hand and raise your voice to Hashem and daven to Hashem. There's no crutch. In a similar vein, similar idea, another medrash says, B'shah shenigla HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe alayom, Amad lo min hatzad. He was standing on the side, and Hashem said, Harem esmatcho uvakeyu, put away your stick and split the water. She'im ein ato boikoi, ein acher boikoi. If you don't do it, Moses, nobody's going to do it. To every Jew, when it comes to the shidduch, it's the same way. If you're not going to do for yourself, nobody can do it for you. It comes to a shidduch, you got to make your own schusim, you got to make your own davening, you got to make your own efforts, and then once you make the efforts, like Moshe did, then it splits. There is an idea that you can get assistance in your efforts, but you got to do the efforts. We know that the Jews got assistance at Kriyas Yamsuf. Two things assisted them. One, they brought along Yosef in his coffin to be buried in the land of Israel, and the sea got a little bit scared of the tzaddik, Yosef HaTzaddik. And also we know that Nachshon ben Aminadab, the head of the Shevet Yehuda, jumped into the water before it split. We see from that there can be assistance. When it comes to a shidduch, the same thing. A person can go to talk to someone, to ask someone to daven for them, to ask someone to also try for them. They should find the Nachshon ben Aminadab, the Arono Shel Yosef, the equivalent of Shiduchim, of merits that other people can help them, guidance, things like that. But ultimately, Hashem said to Moses, if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it. It helps you that Nachshon jumps in. It helps you that Yosef's remains are taken along. But to rely on that alone doesn't work. A person has to rely on themselves when it comes to the shidduch, and then they can also ask tzaddikim to daven for them. They can also try to find other people to give them advice, to help them, to try and promote them for whatever shidduch they need. But they can't just say, well, I told already a Mekubal, a tzaddik, that I need a shidduch, so I don't have to do anything anymore. It doesn't work like that. Finally, the last thing is that can't be overstressed is the davening, the praying. Because even at the Yam Suf, in the end, after everything, it looks like that davening did it. Because Moshe started crying out to Hashem and davening to Hashem, and Hashem said the famous words, Ma titzak Eloi. Why are you screaming to me? Why are you davening to me? What's wrong with that? Moshe's davening. So it says, because the Jews already davened, Kfor hispalalu bonai, the Jewish people have already davened, Vishamati tfilason, and I've heard their tefillah. And their tefillah is going to make the Kriyas Yamsuf. So the main element of the Zichusim is the tefillah. It picks up everything, and it's gigantic. To conclude, I want to say, though, that if you get a little discouraged about davening and think to yourself, who am I to daven? How can I daven? I'm not righteous. I have so many character traits that are wrong. I have so many aveiros. I have so little concentration. I hardly know Hebrew. I don't know the translation of the words. Yeah, the Jews then, who knows? But what am I as far as davening? Sometimes a one-word davening, which was said just plain, can actually shake up the heavens. And I'll conclude with this story. It's not a story from the Talmud. It's a story recently in Jewish history. Recently is relative. 200 years ago. There were a group of Hasidim traveling in Poland to their famous rabbi, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak the chazaq from Lublin. The chazaq from Lublin was a great rabbi, and people would travel to him to spend Shabbos and Yom Tov and holidays with him. A whole group from one town went traveling, and one of their members decided to go a few days early. So he left early. He's going to get there early. He's going to spend a few extra days with the holy rabbi. And he traveled there, and he got there, and he came into the great rabbi. And as soon as he walked into the rabbi's room, the rabbi said to him, Oi, go home. Go home? Why should I go home? And the rabbi, the holy chazaq, said to him, because I see, unfortunately, I sense in your neshama that your time is very limited in this world, and you're about to depart from the world. Why should you be here? Go home to your family. The man hears this. He doesn't know what to do with himself. His heart is beating. He's sweating. What a thing to hear. What a horrible thing out of a bolt of lightning. The rabbi says he sees this. He'd better go home. He puts together his things. He starts traveling home. On the way home, he has to stop in the same inns, in the same hotels, same lodgings that he spent on the way coming there. And he comes to a certain inn, and he's on his way home. And just as he's traveling home, his friends from the town that are going to the rabbi come to the same inn. And they meet him. And they say to him, what are you doing here? You didn't get to the rabbi, to the chazaq in Lublin, Poland yet? So he said, yeah, I was there. And I'm on the way home already. Why are you on the way home already? I don't get it, they said. He didn't want to tell them exactly, what the rabbi said. The rabbi said I should go home, and, maybe it's not so good. I should stay there in Lublin with the rabbi. And his friends look at him and they say, you look so pale. You look so worried. Well, what's your problem? Nothing. I just got to go home. And they say, nonsense. You look terrible. Sit down. Have a bite to eat. They give him a piece of cake. They pour him a schnapps. That's Yiddish for whiskey. In case I don't know the Sephardic word. Whatever, but you know what it does. It's alcoholic. They pour him a little glass of l'chaim, and they say, drink, l'chaim. And he drinks what can harm. He takes a drink. They pour him, well, you still don't look right. Another l'chaim, 2 is even stronger. They give him another l'chaim. They pick him up. They dance with him. They give him another l'chaim. He has a few more l'chaims, and his equilibrium is not 100%. And they convince him, you don't have to go home. Come back with us to the rabbi. He goes back with them to the rabbi. 2 days later, they reach Lublin. They come to the rabbi, to the chazaq. And the chazaq takes one look at him among the other people from that town. And he says to the young man, what happened? And the young man says, well, I started on the way home, but no. The decree that I saw on your neshama that you're going to die, it's not there anymore. It's not there. You must have done some tremendous mitzvah. You must have changed your mazal with a great zichus. You must have changed what was predestined with a great merit. What did you do? Nothing. I just went home. But you must have done something special. What happened? Nothing. Tell me what happened. Well, I was going home. I came to the inn, and on the way I met my friends, and they said I looked pale, and they gave me some whiskey to drink, and they each one said to me, "L'chaim, l'chaim." That's it. That's it. The brachot, the blessings that your fellow citizens from your town, your friends, gave you with sincerity, and they said to you, "L'chaim, l'chaim," to life, that shredded the decrees. It was said with sincerity and with love and with feeling. That shredded the decrees. There was a tefillah. The tefillah already gave the schusim the power to change your mazal. So in case somebody thinks, I need to have some special words to say or special things, here you have a story where one word, l'chaim, changed a person's life's decrees. One person wishing it to the other person with sincerity. None of them were rabbis. None of them were Kabbalists. They were plain working people just like us. Plain people. And they had that merit to say that l'chaim. Hashem should help us that we should never be discouraged. The Talmud says, Ein Mazal Yisrael, you're not in a box, we're not in a box, we can rise up. The tools are there. The tools are the simple mitzvahs, the Torah, merits, a good word to somebody else, a tefillah of any sort that adds the vitamins spiritually that we need for our zechusim, and Yehi Ratzon, it should be the will of Hashem, that every single person in this room and everyone in the congregation and everybody in the Jewish people and the whole world in general, Tikkun Olam, should rise to the occasion of l'chaim, toivim, u'l'shalom, and everybody, mishalos, libeinu, l'toiva, the wishes of our heart should be fulfilled from Hashem in a good and positive way, individually, communally, nationally, universally, and ultimately we should experience the real l'chaim of the new life of the Jewish people and the world in general. B'vias Goel with Mashiach should come b'meira v'yameinu. Amen. Thanks everyone for coming. L'chaim.